5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You're listening to Tabletop and Beyond with your host, Justin.
But before we get started, how was your Geek Week?
And co-hosts Dan and Jason.
You have to be willing to let the dice help you tell the story.
Okay, look, this year I'm going to stop mispronouncing words. Join us as we cover board games to war games and beyond.
And welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond. I am your host, Justin, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Dan and Jason.
Hey, everybody.
Dan's here
Mute
somewhere.
Mute button. Found the mute button.
And
Howdy.
welcome back, Dan.
Thank you.
Today, go ahead.
If I had a nickel for every time I've heard, I was on mute while I was talking over the last 2 years.
Yeah, we'd be rich. We'd be rich.
Right.
One thing that we are excited about today is that we are joined by Nathan Woll, game board designer of Free Radicals. Nathan, welcome to our show today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We reached out to you a couple weeks ago. Man, it must have been even maybe a month ago about you coming on, because I think that when I invited you on the show, you had just received your physical copy of your game.
Yes, yep, I got it. Yeah, I got a pre-release copy in the mail, and I was very excited about that.
I bet you were. That was probably, in your hands, the culmination of a lot of hard work, and blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting that going. So congratulations on that. We're going to talk to you about that today, dive into the game, into you as a game designer, and all of that good stuff. But before we get started, Jason, how was your Geek Week?
Fun Geek Week, man. I broke into a new game with the little kids. It's called Zombies Kids Evolution.
Oh, okay.
It's a fun little board game. It's about $25 on Amazon, but it's one of those progressive games. I'm always hesitant on progressive games because I don't like to manipulate the actual components to change the way that they could play. But this one, it's only $25. It's a little box game. You get kind of a sticker book and a progression chart, and every time you play the game, you can put a sticker on over a little dot on the progression chart.
Oh.
And after so many games, whether you win or lose, you get to these little points that say open envelope number 1. And so you reach in the box and you pull out envelope number 1, and it has special things in it that tweak the game as you play. Like maybe there's a new character, or there's a new power that one of the existing characters has. So it's so simple. Like my 6-year-old plays it with me.
Yeah.
And so the gameplay itself is super simple. Like it's basically just a kind of square board, and you're just rolling a dice, spawning a zombie, walking to the zombie, and killing it. Like there's no real like combat mechanics or anything. It's just where does the little zombie pop up next, and where are you gonna go to try to get rid of the zombies. But
so sounds like
it's really fun.
It sounds like a little bit like they took some elements of Gloomhaven, where you put the stickers on the thing and like you just kind of go through and then you open up the next envelope. And I mean, like, I'm sure that Gloomhaven isn't the first one to do those kinds of things.
But I snicker when you say
Yeah.
they took elements from Gloomhaven. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not at all what the designers of this game did. But
those are elements that I have recently played with in Gloomhaven.
Right.
So
right.
That's what was coming.
Anyone who's played Gloomhaven is familiar with that kind of stuff. But yeah, this game and it's fun. I think there's enough progression. There's like 8 envelopes in the game and stuff, and there's little missions you can do so that if you complete the game with 3 zombies in the outskirts, then you complete a mission and you get a trophy which helps you progress faster.
Oh, nice.
Or
okay.
But it's also simple stuff to just help your family play, like play with 3 players, win a game with 4 players.
Oh,
there's one that says play a game with someone you've never played before. There's even a part on the back that says, write the names of players that you've played with. So it's definitely a family-friendly, like, let's sit around the table and, like, spend some quality time together game.
Yeah.
So really fun. If you have teenagers, they're probably not going to play this game at all. It's just there are no mechanics to the game, right? It's I would say it's definitely a step up from Candyland, but there's not really much beyond just rolling the dice and doing what the dice kind of tell you to do.
Yeah.
But when it does get a little more complicated when zombies start to overrun the board, then you kind of have to stop your 6-year-old and be like, no, you don't want to go into that room,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but maybe go into this room instead. But anyway, so that was one thing I did, which was fun. Another thing is I finally broke into my Alien Frontiers game. This game is like a 2017 game, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna break into it. I did a little unboxing video. We'll post that on the YouTube soon. It's not like it's gonna be the first unboxing video with the game coming out in 2017, but I took it from a perspective of, I know that this is supposed to be a 1-hour 4X game.
Right.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I played 4X games, I've never had one last shorter than like 2.5 hours.
I mean, maybe it's like Monopoly where you can play it in an hour, right?
Don't even
Jason?
even start with Monopoly. No. I got to recover from that. But anyway, so they're claiming 1 hour 4X game, and the game is only $20. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what this is all about. So I broke it open, did a little unboxing clip. I'll post it up there so people can kind of follow my journey of seeing how well this game really lives up to the 1 hour 4X experience.
Was it?
If it does, it's going to be cool.
Was it 20
but
hours?
I'm critical.
Sorry, was it $20 when it first retailed?
No, it was about $45.
Ooh.
But it's been $20. I think I've seen it as low as $17 at Gen Con, like on the shelves.
Does that sound like a fire sale to you?
I don't know, man, because it's, unless a fire sale can last for 3 years.
Right. Maybe people really aren't buying it. I don't know.
Well, so here's what's interesting. I got my copy at Second and Charles.
Okay.
And so it's not like it's been on the shelf at Second and Charles for 3 years. It's been on the shelf at Second and Charles for a month.
For those who don't know, Second and Charles, it's kind of like a It's kind of like a...
It's kind of like what a Barnes & Noble
bookstore. It's a bookstore and a pawn shop all in one.
Yeah, they got new stuff, but then they have like used stuff that you can...
Used video games, used music, musical instruments, and it's an interesting place.
You
can find some weird stuff.
For sure.
And
but
this was new in the box, right?
New in the box, yeah. So probably about 2.5 years, maybe three or more years ago, Second and Charles started, at least the one local to us, started to ramp up their board games. So they started stocking kind of the modern and recent board games. So what is curious to me is that this game made it on their shelf. Years later, not too many people have heard of the game, and it's been, at a discount rate for 3 years. Like, why did they get this on their shelves? So I don't know, but I bought it. We're gonna dive into, I think, tomorrow night or 2 nights from now. I got a couple friends coming over. We're gonna try it, see if it really lives up to the hype, and we'll let you know.
Very cool. Very cool. Nathan. I said Nate. Sorry if I called you Nate.
No, I go by Nate a lot as well, so that's fine.
Okay, good.
I was gonna say it was a little presumptuous of you there.
I know, right?
Justin.
Very familiar.
I think my Twitter handle is Nate Woll, so that's
all right. That's probably why. So Nathan, how was your geek week?
It was great. On let's see here. Yesterday, I got to play a board game with my wife. We played the cooperative game called Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Designed by Rainer Knizia. It came out in like 2001. It's an older game, but it's a favorite. My wife likes cooperative games, and so that's one of the ones that hits our table often.
Who's the publisher?
We lost. The publisher is Fantasy Flight.
Oh, is this the Journeys into Middle Earth, like the one that uses the like the interactive?
Nope.
Kind of no.
Different one.
No.
This is a different one.
No, this is a different one. This is, like I said, this is an older one. It's actually one of the first cooperative games that kind of hit the market. So basically,
I see it.
My wife and I play on the same team trying to beat the game.
Yeah.
And so it was fun. We lost, but In fact, we have not beaten it very often. It's very difficult to beat with 2 players, or else we're just really bad. I don't know, but but it's fun. It's a fun game. So I got to play that on Sunday, and then I did a lot of board game design as well this week. So
Oh, are you working on one specifically, or just kind of rattling around a couple different ideas?
yes, so I worked specifically on one this week that basically I had worked on, I don't know, maybe a year ago or maybe longer than that, and kind of set it aside. And I went back to it this week. I had a flash of inspiration and feverishly worked on it a bunch this week, and I got it. Yeah, it worked on a lot, and I'm going to get to play test it on Thursday this week with some other designers, and we'll see how it goes.
Oh, that sounds great. Good.
Yes,
good
I'm
geek
excited.
week.
I felt like I was able to accomplish a lot this week working on that design.
Nice.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Dan, how was your geek week?
Pretty good. I know I haven't been on the podcast a lot, so I probably have a pretty deep well of geeky stuff that I've yet to report on. One geeky thing I got today in the mail was rewinding the clock a little bit. There was a package of first order TIE fighters, 3 TIE fighters in a pack for X-Wing miniatures game. One TIE fighter was the one that Kylo Ren flew that he tried to run into Rey with, like pedestrian style. He was trying to splatter on his windshield.
Yeah.
I remember that one. And there were 2 bombers that came with it. But sadly, they misprinted one of the components, which is the little cardboard thing you put down on the plastic base. And it's really important for the game because it tells you your initiative, and it has fire arcs that are really super important, right? And so they misprinted that. And so then they went online and they put out a PDF, a printed out PDF that was wrong. I don't know if you guys remember that at all. But anyway, commerce is here to save us. And I went on Etsy, and there's this cool, Etsy guy. It's called Exclamation Studios. I'm going to plug his stuff because I think it's great. We're not getting a nickel from Exclamation Studios. He only kind of really has 3 kind of main products on his page. And one of those products is, so what he does is he makes these custom cardboard chits. So instead of just having a cardboard chit that says Han Solo or a target lock with a number on it, or a ship number on it, you can actually put the photos of the characters. They print photos, right?
Oh, cool.
They're standard cardboard chits, but they just kind of take it to the next level. And they're a little pricey, but they're kind of fun if you're into it. But they did a great job of putting out the proper game component for FFG Atomic Mass Games. So I was happy to send some money their way and get some new chits in. So I'm kind of spending more and more time on Etsy and a few of these other, artisanal websites looking for different kind of components. Largely that's because I got in a scrimmage game with our buddy Adam, and he's got a lot of really bespoke components to his X-Wing collection. It got me.
Oh, that's very cool.
It got my FOMO going just a teeny tiny bit. The second thing is we ran 2 sessions of Klingon Empire. One was a long session 0 with a short session 0.5 where we, if you make a character, it's kind of fun to kind of play the character. And we got in some skill checks and a combat, and that was great. And then we finished that on another night a few weeks later, and this was just on Friday we finished it. And then I added some more stuff to it because I wanted it to be a launching point for a larger campaign. So we basically played the same thing that you and I played, Justin. It's just I had rewritten it and gave it a little more flair, and a large space battle at the end. And the space battle turned out really great. I love the ship combat in the Modiphius Star Trek system. It really feels right. And I'd never run it before. I ran it with my group, and I'd never run it before, and they knew I had never run it before. but it felt good. The ship's trying to help you. The engineer's trying to fix things. We had when the ship tries to add, successes to your skill check, we always had the engineer roll that one die to see if the ship did it or not. And that was pretty cool. And the captain, she was doing captainy things. It all turned out rather great. Very lethal game. You take a bad hit in that game. You take 2 bad hits in one combat, and you're writing a new character. Same with ships. I mean, if you could get a bad combination and you're all sucking vacuum. So super lethal, and that's kind of fun. It really gets the stress level up. Unlike some other sci-fi games that are criticized from time to time about being too walk in the parky.
Which ones?
I don't know. I don't know. Probably Aliens, right? Aliens is a walk in the park game.
Right.
So, anywho, long story short, great time. We took a pause from Star Wars to play this, and I'm like, hey, I just did this for funsies. Should we go back? And they're like, no. Let's do this for a little while longer. So, we're going to be running some more Klingon Empire around these parts. So I'll report out if anything else exciting happens.
Nice. Very good. Sounds like, it's always nice when you kind of invest in an RPG and then you're able to play it with your gaming group. Right?
Yeah. I have a rule, which is you got to get a number of sessions equal to the number of supplements you've purchased. So I'm up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 supplements, and I've played it 3 times now. So I got to get 5 more out of this before I get my money's worth.
It sounds like you might be able to do it.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. It's good.
Well, my Geek Week was it was pretty good. I, of course, am continuing to paint this terrain. If you have listened to the Warcry podcast, you'll know that I had just been struggling with this Red Harvest Warcry terrain just to get it done. It ended up being like 1,000 times more tedious than I thought it was going to be. But that aside, one thing that we did was cool this week is Jason and I ended up recording a whole bunch of board game review segments. So we've got quite a few more games in the hopper. I think what we've got is Selfish Zombie Edition. We've got Gunfights and Gambling. And we've got the Call of Cthulhu RPG all in the hopper right now. Yep. So we're really excited to get those board things out. And Jason, I know I owe you some things for that, but soon. I will get them to you soon.
No worries.
And the other thing that I wanted to say is that my kids have finally persuaded me to come down and play Minecraft Dungeons with them. We played it originally maybe a year and a half ago when it first came out.
Is that the story one?
Yeah, and it's like Diablo.
It's like
no, there's Minecraft Story Mode.
Oh, right.
Which is like the Telltale games, right? And that it's not that one. This is like Diablo style, where it's like a dungeon crawler. It's a top down type of thing. It's very Diablo light, very Diablo light. There's no classes. The way that you level up, and leveling up just allows you to get gear that is higher in your level. It doesn't even increase any stats. Maybe health a little bit. No, actually it doesn't. Leveling up doesn't increase your health. What happens is you're able to like if I am a level 20, now I'm able to get between level 16 and 25 gear, for example. And that piece of armor will increase my health. That's a higher armor class, So if I'm 30, then I can get around level 30 stuff. And that's really all it is. If you want to be more magic stuff, well, you just start wielding more magic stuff. If you want to be more of a tank, then you'll put on heavier armor type things. So the different classes of armor are not too widely dispersed. I think there's 5 sets of armor maybe, but it's the RNG, the upgrades and enhancements that you can get from, having it roll at a higher level that make it interesting. And it's fun. My youngest 9-year-old, she loves playing it, and my 15-year-old has said, just having fun with it. So I got on there and was playing around with them, and we've had good times with it. So if you've got kids, this is a great way to play with them. Because, you're just fighting Minecraft skeletons and zombies and illagers and all that stuff. So
and you don't have to go make a hatchet.
You don't. You don't.
Nice.
Yes, exactly. The hatchets will drop freely, my friend.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
I watched my kids play that one as I walked through the room.
Yeah. So it's pretty fun, and it doesn't take a lot of brain power. So, like, if it's just like I'm going to hang out and mess around with my kids, it's fun.
Nice.
It's pretty good. So, well, it sounds like we all had some pretty good geek weeks. And, let's keep on geeking out, I guess. I think we've got some news.
Sorry, there's no news bumper tonight. I basically, I was at a 3-day wedding, and you think that's funny, but it was a wedding that had events spread out over 3 days, and I just walked in the front door. It was in Long Island, so do the math. We had I live in Northern Virginia, so I'm barely holding it together right now. But
no worries, we didn't have one last time, and so we just kind of left it blank.
Yeah, it's all just a big fizzled out thud.
It's all good. But we do have some
okay.
news items.
Yeah, I added a couple items
I like
in there.
it.
So, big one, right? Elden Ring this Friday, the 25th of February. I've been waiting a while for this. It's going to be exciting. It's the spiritual successor to the Dark Souls games. This is supposed to play much like all of the games from this company. So we're talking like Demon Souls. We're talking the Dark Souls games, Bloodborne, all of those games. Sekiro, I don't know how to say it. Sekiro, the samurai one.
Oh, right.
Yep. So, but it one interesting thing about this game is it adds two new things that are different. One, it has mounted combat. So,
Whoa.
Actually, three new things. It has mounted combat. So you actually have a mount. You'll be running around the world, which brings to the second thing is it is an open world versus kind of a linear area progression.
Wow.
Now, one interesting thing about Dark Souls is that people would probably scream at the fact that I said linear. But the reality is that you really do progress through the game through a linear map of zones. The zones themselves are not linear.
Right.
But you do have to kind of sequentially progress through the game. Whereas this game, no one quite knows except maybe those people that got lots of beta testing. But it is a completely open world, so you should be able to explore an enormous amount of the world, right at the beginning once you get your horse and get running. So that's going to be a little different than how a lot of the kind of these games have been. The other thing is that this has a jump mechanic, which has not been in any of the Dark Souls or the Bloodborne game besides dodge or roll. You can literally jump. So that will be an interesting add to this system. But I'm super excited. I've played all of the games. I'm except for the Samurai one. I never got into that one yet.
So it's Sekiro, right? Yeah.
Sekiro, yep.
Isn't that kind of an open world one? Wasn't that open world? I
don't
know.
I didn't play it.
I never played it because it was on
I don't think it
PlayStation.
was. Mine, it's on Xbox and
is it?
PC and
Okay.
PlayStation, yeah. But my understanding is that this is the first massive open world. Now, it's not a online role-playing game, but it does have the same co-op and PvP that all of the other games have, where you get invaded and you can summon allies to fight with you. So it should be fun times, starting 25th February.
And you have already pre-ordered that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and it's funny because I have not bought a game in probably 2 years because of the Games Pass. But this is not on Games Pass, and so I actually bought it.
Right on.
First time in a while.
Yeah.
But anyways,
looking forward to that.
I'll let you hit this. Let you hit the next one, Justin, because I know it's important to you.
So one of the great things that happened this last week.
My Facebook blew up with this, by the way.
One of the great things that happened this week was that our God Emperor himself, Henry Cavill.
Can't we just say
Heartthrob to
emotional
many.
patron?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to refer to him as full name, Henry William Dalglish Cavill. He visited Warhammer World this week, which is the headquarters of Warhammer. And for us in the Warhammer community, it was like seeing the pilgrim of all pilgrims reach the Holy Land. So,
Nathan, I don't know if you understand truly the bro crush that Justin has on Henry Cavill.
It sounds
Yeah, listen. I'm fan number one. I don't care who's out there. My wife says she's fan number one, but I don't think so. But there's some great videos of him just like totally geeking out at this place, right, Warhammer World, and it's so awesome to see him like a kid in a candy shop. And like I would be the same way. I think that's what's so amazing about this is that like he's just like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff, and I would be like that too, you know. And it makes you feel that he's just one of the bros. So
well, and he posted
I think
about
I said
it,
this out
which
loud.
was great.
Yeah.
He posted about it, and his post was amazing. And then if you dug a little deeper, he went throughout the whole place and took photos with a lot of people. You know, and was really generous with his time and was amazed and it was geeking out on lore and finding the writers and the whole bit. So, you know, I got the feels from it, and I don't even own any Games Workshop stuff yet. Sorry.
Yeah, look, no, it's fine. I have a bucket list of all bucket lists of this podcast. I would be able to shut down this podcast happy if one day Henry Cavill came on our podcast. So I'm putting that out there in the ether. Henry Cavill, if you're listening, I'm just find us on Twitter at Tabletop and Beyond or Facebook. Just reach out and we'll schedule you.
If we tag him in enough metadata, will it come up?
Well, if it happened, one of either Dan, you or I would have to host because Justin would be short of breath.
Yeah, he'd be.
I would not.
He'd be a little fangirly.
I
be
would
a lot
not
of laughing
be able
into
to.
the palm of his hand.
You'd be doing like the hey, remember that time?
The Chris
Yeah.
Farley
Remember
interviews.
that time?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be.
Hey, Arnold
amazing.
Schwarzenegger, do you remember that time you were on Terminator? That was awesome. Yeah, that's exactly what I would be doing. You guys would have to host. Oh, it'd be bad. So, but yeah, the other bit of Henry Cavill news, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but he is playing Duncan MacLeod in the new reboot of Highlander.
Yep, I heard.
So excited for that one.
So it is exciting, but I mean, at some point, is it going to be like Last Action Hero, where it's like, you know, there's like a million movies and it's always the same kind of guy, or the same face that we see?
I mean, maybe, but like, what's
But
the
you're
problem?
okay with that.
What's the
You're
problem?
right.
here?
That's the thing.
I mean,
You're
you love all the Arnold movies, don't you?
Of course.
Of course. Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But Arnold always plays the same person.
That's true.
Except for Terminator. He did play it.
I mean,
kinda
Henry Cavill's got a little bit of range, right?
He does. I think he does. He's much better.
He was in that in that show Enola that was like he was playing Sherlock Holmes. Enola was his sister.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, he was
And
like a side character.
he was a total side character in that. He was also in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which was a very different. I guess he was very similar to the August. What was his name? August character in Mission Impossible. August Walker. He was kind of the bad guy in the last Mission Impossible. But
Yeah.
so I mean,
That was a great role.
yeah. So he does it around. He
All right. Well, anyways.
yeah, I know. We could talk. Maybe we need a whole show on Henry Cavill, guys.
Maybe you need a whole show.
Maybe I do. Maybe I'll just record it myself and talk to myself about Henry Cavill.
That'll be funny. I'll get this ping on Discord. Hey, Jason, can you mix the latest episode? And I'll be all, what episode? And then I'll get on there.
Who
and it's
recorded?
you talking about Henry Cavill for like 2 hours, and it'll be 2 hours too, because you know you're not supposed to talk that long.
Exactly. I'll break all the rules.
Yeah. All right. So last bit of news. Yesterday. So today's the 21st. So I think actually last night, Capcom announced Street Fighter 6. So those of you who are fighting game fans, this should be exciting, right? A new installment in the Street Fighter series. And I'm going to tell you one thing: Ryu is getting buffer and buffer every game. I swear the dude weighs like 600 pounds now. He's got to. If you look at his models, just all muscle. But
He
anyways,
looks ripped.
totally ripped. I mean, unnaturally ripped at this point.
Yeah.
But
Dude,
anyways,
this is what happens when you've been doing roids for year after year.
yeah, for 30 some years.
It's a
Yeah,
cautionary
whatever.
tale.
You know what's funny is there are so many versions of Street Fighter. there's going to be those super nerds out there, but like I guarantee you right now, I could not, and I don't think anyone here of us today could name all of the different versions of Street Fighter that there are.
No, but
It's
I've played
crazy.
version 1 in the arcade, version Uno, the mother version.
Yeah.
And it was crap. It was crap compared to 2.
Yep, totally is.
Yeah. I was like,
totally not worth
I was
it.
like, wow, where's 2?
Yeah. Well, where's
So
my
bad.
quarter?
So bad. But that's okay. It's come a long way. I played a ton of Street Fighter on the Super Nintendo.
Street Fighter 2 Turbo?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, played that
That was a
lot.
big one. That was a big one when it hit SNES.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, we played that and would listen to Metallica.
Totally.
It was a good afternoon.
I still have the Guile theme song in my head every day.
Nice. Well, Jason, thank you much for the news that you provided us. And let's get to our main topic. So, Nathan, we brought you on the show because we really wanted to kind of dig into your brain a little bit.
First of all, you still there?
Yes,
Yeah,
sounds
right.
good. No,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, so we wanted to dig into your brain a little bit because having published a game, that's definitely an accomplishment that none of us here on the podcast can claim to. We've started different game designs. In fact, Jason's been designing a little game himself, but we haven't actually gotten to the point of like getting a physical copy in our hands as you have. So we wanted to dig in a little bit and get a little bit about your background and what the process was like. So why don't we start with you a little bit? So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like how did you get into game design? Like what kind of games do you like playing? Like how let's start with this. How long have you been gaming, my friend?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I've been gaming basically, I want to say my whole life, probably not, but I'm 43 years old. When I was growing up, my dad was really into board games, and of course, this is the 80s when there really weren't board games, the type of modern games that we have today. But I had several older cousins that he would consistently spend time playing games with, and I remember even as a child, I would play like the kids games with my dad, but I just couldn't wait till I got old enough to play what I looked at as the adult games with my dad and my older cousins. One was Diplomacy, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Diplomacy.
Oh yeah.
That's a friendship ender. That's a good one. That's a good one.
But that was a game my dad and cousins would play consistently over the holidays. My cousins, most of them were in the education field, so they had time off during Christmas and things like that. And so I looked forward to playing that. But otherwise, it was like Monopoly, Risk. There was a game called Careers we would play a lot. Older stuff like that. And I thought it was great. I just loved playing board games, card games. We played a lot of card games. I'm from Michigan, so we played euchre a lot. And poker, things like that. So
it's interesting because we're around the same age, and I had a very similar experience. Growing up playing games, which was a lot of Parker Brothers, right?
Yep,
Like
yep.
I mean, Monopoly, like all that kind of stuff. I remember being in 7th grade and discovering Risk. And being like, what is this, right? Like, because it was like such a step up from the roll the dice, move your figure around the board, and follow the instructions type of thing,
Yeah, for sure. Risk, I think, was definitely my favorite game when I was in 7th grade.
It was big.
It was amazing.
And then, as I got a little bit older, like some of these other like kind of Euro games like Catan and Ticket to Ride and things like that started popping up a little bit more. I think when I was in college, I was starting to see them a lot more. And so, when would you say that your game library? I mean, Diplomacy was a pretty complicated game, but like, when would you say that you kind of graduated into like maybe games 2.0?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. We played Diplomacy. We played a few other Avalon Hill games. Those were the kind of like gamer games. We played a couple they were called war games back then. I'm not sure how they compare to war games nowadays, but just they were games that simulated historical conflicts.
Yeah.
There was a game called Skirmish about the American Revolution. But when I got out of college, I didn't really play a lot of games during college, but other than just when I was home on holidays. But when I got out of college, my family had discovered Puerto Rico and Acquire.
Oh, that's a great game, Puerto
And
Rico. I
those-
got that on my shelf right now.
Yeah, so those were kind of the first two games, and then we discovered Catan after that, and I played that a bunch. But yeah, those are the games that kind of introduced me to modern board games. Yeah, we bought, between myself or my dad or others, cousins, people in our family, we bought several. We started just getting modern board games. My one cousin has, actually two of my cousins have very large collections now, but that started around that time, around the 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. And so, what kind of games do you like playing right now?
Um, I guess I do like what are called heavy Euro games. The strategy games that focus more on the I don't know the best way to describe a Euro game. It's probably a bad term to use if you're not familiar with it. But I also consider myself a variety gamer because I like a lot of different games. I like trivia games, and most people don't that consider themselves modern board game players. But I do like trivia games. But I like family games. Let me think. Agricola is one of my favorite games. So I do prefer playing games in that style, like Agricola. There's a game called Lorenzo Il Magnifico that's kind of along that line. So those are some of my favorite games and favorite styles of games.
Yeah, I remember being at Gen Con, and one of our friends, we went into the Wayfair games room, right? And so they've got all sorts of those types of games. They had Puerto Rico. We ended up playing, was it something Rome?
Glory to Rome?
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah. And it was great because it was like the Roman Empire, and you had to kind of like move around and take territories and stuff like that. But it was very much, kind of the Euro game. Another one of our friends has the kind of like the Raiders of the North Sea series, and
Yes.
how
Yeah, those are great. I like those a lot. Yep.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Like worker placement games, but a lot of strategy in it.
Yeah.
And one of our other friends has the Dune game that's very similar to that came out recently. The name of it escapes me right now,
It's
but
a
Dune.
game
it's
of
very
diplomacy.
The Dune Imperium or the actual Dune?
Dune, a game
I
of
think it's the
conquest
Dune-
and diplomacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, yeah.
yeah. So that was a
So
lot
that
of
just
fun.
has a big the planet on the board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I played that. That's a
the
good one. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, very good. So, I mean, it seems like you really kind of like the these sort of placement strategy games. I mean, some people call them Euro games because a lot of them seem to come from Europe, right?
Right. It's not a great term because you kind of have to describe it, and that doesn't really fit every game. So, but I don't know the best term to describe this type of game. So.
Well, I
think
always thought Euro games were games that focused around engine currency builders.
Yeah, that's another marker. My
It's
friend
like
Peter
Euros
C.
in, like,
Hayward
the
likes
currency
to use.
Euro, not Europe.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Oh.
Well, I think the original term comes from the fact that they were published in
A lot of
Germany.
them out of there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
Like a
but-
lot of them were like German games, right?
Right,
That
right.
were really kind of focused from there, and so they come over here. So
Yeah.
But I think the concept is that they're heavy resource management games.
yes,
Yes. Yeah, that's yeah.
definitely.
Anyways, I tell you, it's interesting. You said you did play historic ward games back in the day, and you talk about games that struggle with balance. Is those early historic war games? I remember I went over to a friend's house once. He was like, "We're going to play this reenactment of when Prussia and I don't even know what was being invaded." And I was like, "All right, sweet. Who do I get to play?" He's like, you get to play this one over here. I was like, the whole board, I only had 3 squares. I'm like, I only have 3 squares. He's like, well, that's how it was in the real life.
Poor Prussia.
Okay. And so for 2 hours we played, and all I did was just refortify as he just controlled the entire board. He's like, yeah, that's pretty much what happened in real life. I was like, all right, well, that was fun. When I want a history lesson next, I'll just come back over.
The joy of the Avalon Hill games was the holodeck. You wanted to simulate what happened.
Yes. Yeah, that's a lot of them were at that time, yes.
Yeah. The problem is I'm not a history buff, so I learned a lot. I learned about what happened, and maybe that's the takeaway. But anyways, fun times. Good stuff. We've got a lot of. I've got a friend in the area that has designed a lot of those board games. He's published several, a lot of them on the Civil War.
Okay.
Also on the. Boy, I'm blanking right now, probably because it's almost 10 o'clock at night here, and I've had a full day of work. But what's the Revolutionary War? He's done a couple of them on the Revolutionary War, which was good too. I think that when you say historic war game and you say war game today, they do mean something different, though.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I think a lot of people when they hear war game today, they're thinking like tabletop miniature war game.
Exactly.
Which can be fantasy based, or it can be modern or military based games in that regards.
Yep.
So let me ask you, what is your by far favorite game that pops to mind when I ask the question?
My number one favorite game of all time is a game called Lord of the Rings: The Confrontation. And I know it's going to be confusing because I actually already earlier in the podcast spoke about a Lord of the Rings game. And this is a different Lord of the Rings game, actually by the same designer. But there's a 2-player game called Lord of the Rings: The Confrontation. And have you ever played the game Stratego?
I was just thinking of that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
basically similar to Stratego. So one side plays the Fellowship of the Ring, the other side plays Sauron and the forces arrayed against them.
Yep.
And your pieces are hidden from the other from your opponent, and you each have 9 pieces, and you need to move them across the terrain. The Fellowship needs to get Frodo to Mordor to destroy the ring to win the game, and Sauron needs to either kill all the Fellowship characters or get to the Shire with 4 of his characters to show that he's conquered the world, basically. And you have cards that you play to influence combat. I have the deluxe version, so you could play with there's not just 9 characters for each side. There's 18 character options for each side. They're all double-sided. And there are extra cards that you could play with to do like special things. And it's a great game. It's bluffing, and you're trying to outwit your opponent, and I feel like it's just so fun to play and try to get in the mind of your opponent. It's very fun. Great game.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking at this on Board Game Geek, and it totally looks like Stratego Lord of the Rings edition, right?
Yes.
With more.
It's with more though. Yeah. There's very clever, because every time you attack an opponent, another player, the other player, you have to play a card that will add to your strength. So I might be attacking with a 2 against a 4, but it doesn't just mean I lost right away, because my card could be, a 6 that I'm adding to it, or whatever. Or I could play a card that says retreat and whatever. And so it's really fun. It's really clever. You're trying to guess which card your opponent's going to play and guess which character they have. All the characters have a special ability as well.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
So Nathan,
awesome.
question for you: Has that game, because it seems to be one of your favorites, has it had an influence when you design board games? Do you kind of go back to that, or the things that you pull from it, or what?
Yeah. Yes. It did not have really any influence on Free Radicals, the game that just got published, but
Okay.
I like 2-player bluffing games where you're trying to really outwit your opponent. I like that style of games. Most of my top 25, top 50 board games are are that similar style.
Bluffing games. Yeah.
Yes, and I've tried to design a few. I have not so far been successful in my mind. They have ways to go, but I've been trying to design board games similar to that.
Have you ever played Coup?
Yes, I have. In fact, actually, my second or third favorite game is a game called Masquerade, which is to me that's Coup, but better.
Okay. I'm enticed because I really enjoy Coup in a social setting.
Yes, Coup was one of my son's favorite games. I introduced him to Masquerade. My son's 19. I introduced him to Masquerade, and now Masquerade he loves it way more. Now Masquerade takes more players. Coup works great with a smaller player count. With Masquerade, you need at least 7 players, so it's hard to get to the table.
Okay. Yeah.
But I feel like it has a lot more strategy than Coup, and a lot more opportunity to bluff and things like that. But I do like Coup. It's good. Yeah. Good bluffing game.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, this is good. So let's talk about Free Radicals a little bit.
Yes.
So this is a game that you just published. Why don't you walk us through the game a little bit? Like, what is the gameplay like?
Yeah.
I'll
give you the overview. So Free Radicals, the concept of the game is, at some point, it's basically cyberpunk, but not punk. So like happy future, cyber future.
Okay.
The concept is, at some point in the future, alien artifacts have appeared in the sky around the world, and these artifacts were found to contain technology that greatly pushed the world civilizations forward in technology, and now everybody just kind of coexists trying to better the world, and these artifacts are called free radicals because of how much they change society. And so the board game takes place in a city in this world, and you take control of one of the factions in this city. There are 10 different factions to choose from, and the unique selling point of the game is whichever faction you choose determines how you will play the game.
Okay.
In other words, it's very asymmetric. Every player is doing something different, and the faction you choose determines how you will gain resources and take actions. Everybody interacts on a main player board where they are trying to awaken these buildings and gain knowledge about the free radicals, and everybody is trying to do that, which is a goal that everybody is trying to do to score points. But individually, each player has a different way they take their turns. So one player, the hoteliers, are building hotels in the different districts of the city, and they can take actions based on what districts they build their hotels in, and that is simulated by they have a player board with Tetris pieces that they're using to form these hotels. And so they're basically playing a polyomino Tetris style game to take actions, while another player has a hand of cards, and they have to discard cards to take actions based on the symbols on the cards and things like that. And then there's 10 different factions. So then there's another faction that is playing a Mancala style game, similar to like the game Trajan or the game Mancala, where you're kind of picking up. It's the executives. So they basically they're shuffling around their assets, trying to get them to the right spot and avoid taxes and things like that.
That sounds really interesting, because I was watching a little bit of a video of the play, right? And I think the faction I was watching, the guy was farming.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
which sounds like that's the only faction that farms, right? Like,
Yep.
And it's a very different game than, like you said, the guy that's playing Tetris with building stuff, right? So.
So I have
Yeah.
two things that come to mind when I hear you describe this game, and the first one is with that type of diversity in the way the players interact with the game. What about player-to-player interaction in the game? How does that happen?
Right. So there's a couple areas for player-to-player interaction. First of all, when you awaken a building, which is basically there's building spaces on the main board, so you can play cards from your hand and pay the cost to awaken a building, and once you do that, all players can interact with that building. So if I build the casino, then anyone can, on their turn, take an action to come to the casino, take the action in the casino. Whenever they do that, they get a bonus, and I get a bonus because I'm the one that built the casino. So it's a lot of interaction. What's the word for it? I can't think of the word right now. But basically, interaction of positive interaction. That's the word I'm looking for.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of positive interaction. The other one is there is a track that simulates your knowledge of the free radicals or your knowledge of technology, and you can choose to try to work on your own knowledge, or you can try to benefit other players and give them knowledge, which is simulated by moving them farther on the track. And when you help other players gain knowledge, then you score points and you get favor from that player, which is a in-game currency, but then they advance farther on the track, and so they may score points at the end of the game for being farther along the track. So the whole game is designed around this positive interaction to give that feel of this futuristic world of everybody kind of participating, but it is a competitive game. You are trying to score the most points.
Oh, that's cool. It's happy family night.
Right.
Happy.
Right.
Yeah.
I should add that one of my design goals was to avoid direct interaction.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a place for that, and I play games with direct interaction, but I also I think there's some really popular asymmetric games that have direct interaction. Root and Vast are both very popular and great, amazing games. And so I thought there was a opportunity in the market for a game that had a lot of asymmetry to it, but didn't have that direct interaction and had that just more focused feel of each player kind of working on their own and just that positive interaction.
Yeah, that's very cool. So the I think direct interaction on competitive games can be a critical part, but it can also finding a way to make a game competitive without direct interaction is I think shows innovation. So that's really cool that you threw that in there. Hey, how did you manage all the asymmetric play and keep the components to like a minimum or manageable?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So
or did you keep the components?
Or did you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. So to give you a little background, I began designing this game in 2015, and in 2018 I showed it to Wizkids, who is the publishing company that is publishing the game, and then in 2019 after they took the game and they did some in-house play testing and they did some in-house just looked it over, and then they got back to me in 2019 and said, hey, we really like it, let's sign a contract. And so we worked that out and signed a contract in 2019, and then it's just now going to be released at the end of this month, at the end of February 2022. So it's a long process.
That's a process.
Yes. So in 2015, when I first had the idea for the game, I had an idea for 5 different factions, and I wanted a game. Another design goal of mine is I like playing different games, and so I thought, what it would be really cool if I designed a game where I could sit down and play one type of game, and my opponent could sit down and play a different style of game that maybe they like better. Maybe they don't like this, maybe they don't like hand management, so they want to play domino style game. And we could both sit down and play the exact same game and enjoy ourselves playing different mechanisms. So
that's such an interesting concept. I don't think I've ever seen a game like that before.
Merchant's Cove came out last year, and it has a similar feel to it. So if that type of concept interests you, I encourage you to look up Merchant's Cove. But yeah, I hadn't played anything like that in 2015 for sure, and so I thought, man, this sounds really cool. I don't know if I could do it, but that would be really fun to try. So I designed a game with 5 factions, and then let me think here. I'm not sure about the time frame. Sometime in 2016, 2017, I took the game to a convention and I was playing it, and one of the playtesters was a publisher, and they're a small publisher, and they said, this isn't really the type of game we're looking to publish, but let me give you some publishing advice. And great person. And I said, yeah, I'm always interested. They said two of your factions have very expensive components, and 3 of them do not, or the other way around. I don't remember at that time which one said the most expensive, but they said some of these factions have very expensive components and some don't. Can you make 5 factions that don't have expensive components? Then pitch that to a publisher, and then if they like the idea, say, hey, I have these other factions that you can sell as expansions that have more expensive components, and just sell them as one-off expansions. And I said, oh, that's a great idea. So I went back to work that night and started designing more factions. And I thought, okay, I could do this. And so then I spent just hours every day just working at. By then I'd played the game so much that I had a good feel for balance, a good feel for how the different factions would integrate, what actions were needed, things like that. So I designed 5 more factions. So now I had 5 factions that didn't have very expensive components, and then 5 factions that had more expensive components.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay,
so,
we'll pitch it that way. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Yeah. So sorry, I think I missed it. Who gave you the advice to kind of break it up again?
Man, I wish I could remember their name, and I can't right now.
But it was at a convention that you were.
Yeah, it was at a convention,
something?
and I should know this off the top of my head. And I can't think of the publisher's name now. They published. Oh man, I'll see if I can look it up. They published a few small games. I can't think of it right now. Maybe I'll look it up and try to get back to you on that.
It's fine.
But yeah, they gave me that advice.
I mean, that's some pretty awesome advice that they gave.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to help you break into it. Because I could totally see where you're like, hey, I don't see anything wrong with this. You know what I mean? Because you just don't know.
Right. Yeah. At that time, I had no idea what the cost of anything would be. Yeah, I didn't know.
Right.
And the great thing is, though, when I pitched the game to Wizkids, this was at Origins in 2018.
Okay.
Zev, who is the director of Wizkids, he was the one I had the pitch meeting with, and he said, after we started talking, he said, you know what? I want to see if we can just do all 10 factions. Just blow it out. Just do all 10 factions, give them everything we got, and let's see if we could do that. So we started talking. We did end up having to change one of the factions throughout the process. One of the factions originally used dice, and in fact used what's the word? Used modified dice. Can't think of the word now. Used dice that were not regular dice.
It's like a special printed
dice.
Yes,
Exactly.
Dice.
No, it was a D6, but they were special printed ones.
Gotcha.
And so we ended up having to drop that faction. That was just going to add, basically just having that one faction was going to add like $10 to the MSRP of the game. And it just didn't seem like that was going to be worth it. So we do have the MSRP is, I think, $69, though most places that have offered it for pre-order have been $59, so around $60.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm seeing it on Miniature Market right now for $59.
Yeah. Most of the pre-order places have got it under $60. And it comes with a lot of components. There's components for 10 different factions in there. So there's, 42 polyhedral pieces. There's cards and all this.
Wow. So the interesting thing about that, though, is yes, there's a lot of components, but if you've got 5 friends around the table, you're only using half of those components. It sounds like, right?
Yes.
So it's not like playing a game like Arkham Horror that with 6 people. You have 1,000 different components.
Cards.
Exactly. Or if you have 2 people, you still have 30 decks of cards.
Right.
You know what
exactly.
I mean? So
it's manageable because, so I should point out as well, you're only dealing with your components.
Right.
One of another design goal of the game that I think puts off some people, and that's fine, but one of my goals was to make it so that you could just sit down, learn your faction, and play the game without having to learn what everybody else at the table is doing as well. So that does reduce the ability of interaction in the game, but it increases the ability to just sit down and learn the game quickly, and to not have to worry about what are all these components. All you have to worry about is just the components in front of you.
You know, there's
some of our favorite
go ahead, Dan.
games we really enjoy are not head to head, bash each other over the head, zero sum games. Like, for instance, we've talked about a Call to Adventure a lot. And in Call to Adventure, the overlap is you're kind of taking cards kind of away from each other that you wanted, but it works perfectly good as a solo game. And there's not a lot of really heavy duty elbowing your fellow players. I think games like this have a real place. Somewhere on the spectrum of everyone walks away pissed at each other or 100% co-op, in the spectrum, there needs to be all the different notes, that can be played in between those two extremes.
Exactly.
Yeah, Nathan,
That's a
so
great point.
thanks for helping to promote world peace.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'll put on my resume. But yeah, that's a good point. It's not for everyone, but I think it does have a target audience out.
Now, the components that are shared, I believe, are the building tiles, right?
Yeah, the building
that
cards
are in the city.
Yep, they're called data cards. Yeah, the building cards. There's like 50 cards that are shared, and then the main board.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, Nathan, it sounds like the general theme of the games, Wizkids kept it. I've talked to some developers in the past who have designed games, and they say that publishers will come and they'll buy the game, but they'll buy the game strictly for the mechanics, and they'll reskin the whole thing once they bought it. But it doesn't sound like that was the case here, was it?
Actually, so I had a slightly similar theme, but I didn't like the theme, and so part of the talk with Zev and with WizKids was, hey, I don't think this is a great theme. What ideas do you have? And so we ended up meeting at another convention at Metatopia in New Jersey. Great convention, but we had a meeting there. I met with several members of the WizKids staff, and we just kind of hashed out what is the best theme for this game. So I wanted the game to be rethemed because I wanted it. I think the theme it has now helps the game be set apart from everything else sitting on the shelf.
Right.
And
there's a lot of rural digging around in the dirt games, right? It's like, you've gone back in time 6,000 years, and now you have to plant a bean. Okay, this is you're in the future. One of the questions that I have, and we're talking about theme, and I don't want to get you off that track, but when we're done talking about theming, which I think the theme is amazing, and I really like it. It gets me excited. It reminds me of Android Netrunner, Shadows of the Beanstalk, which I think are fantastic. But the art direction is also really, really exceptionally done, in my opinion.
Yes, I was so. I'll be honest. So first of all, going back to the theme, yeah, I'm the type of designer that I don't generally do well with strong theming. I tend to focus more on the mechanical aspects of the game and the other parts of the game. So when I approach publishers, and I've approached with other games, I haven't other games actually. I'll have another game published pretty soon as well. But when I approach publishers, I'm completely open to, hey, if you feel like there's a better setting for this game that is going to just stand out, please help me. Let's work together on this. WizKids is great. They have been phenomenal to work with. So then, to your question about art, in my wildest dreams, this has surpassed my expectations for what I wanted the art direction to go.
Right.
Cool.
I want diversity in games. I want females on the cover. I want people of color on the cover. I want those characters in the game. I want you can play as a character in a wheelchair in this game.
You have differently abled people, which
yes,
is amazing.
you could play as an elderly character. One of the artisans she's an probably older than I am. Her character looks like. There are so many different diverse representations in the game, and to me that made me very excited.
Yeah, there's people can have a feeling of representation when they play the game.
Exactly.
Would you mind spoiling, for the sake of this conversation, what other theme was on the table for this Free Radicals game? Or if you don't want to say it, don't say it. But
Yeah, no.
I'm just curious if that's available for conversation.
Yeah, so it started off as just a generic like medieval, every game set in the medieval times. And so then
the ones I was dissing.
Yes,
Okay,
no, but that's so. Here's the
Way
funny
to go,
thing.
Dan.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Sorry.
Here's the funny thing. Some of my co-designers and other designers that I playtest with tease me about this, but I tend to start a lot of my games in that setting because it's a setting I'm familiar with, and then after I feel like I've got the bare bones of the game down, then I try to kind of branch out. So it started as that. There was a lot of other settings considered, some wild stuff, but anyway, yeah, so that's what it started as.
Well, I kind of like what you have here, because what that freed you from was your ability to say, yes, it should be cyberpunk, but it doesn't need to be cyberpunk. It could be cyber positive. Right?
Exactly.
Like, you could free yourself from, if I'm doing a cyberpunk game, then I need to have a guy with a mohawk with a baseball bat. It's like, it's been done a million times. This is something unique, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a real strength of what you've done here.
Yeah, and I also don't want to make it sound like it was just, oh, hey, just take the same game, slaps a different art on it, and boom, nothing else has changed. There was...
It had to feel right.
Right. There was a lot of... Wizkids hired a narrative director who... Calvin Wan... I can't think of his name now. Let's see here. But he helped tell the story. The graphic editor, Daniel Solis, did a lot of work with trying to help redesign some of the actions and some of the other abilities of the factions to fit with the new setting better. And then some of the stuff that didn't make sense in my theme made way more sense once we changed the setting. Like, cool. That makes way more sense. Why didn't I think of that ahead of time? I don't know. So
that knight couldn't cyberjack into that computer.
Right, exactly. Like, that didn't make any sense. So that was great. That was great.
Well, that must be really
cool.
Exciting from a collaborative standpoint to say, okay, there's art and there's commerce. We want to get a good game out that people will buy and play. And you got to be willing to make adjustments, to partner with the story editor, to partner with the graphics editor and say, how can we make this, achieve higher heights collaboratively? And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of go back to like your interaction with Wizkids. Like you said that they've been amazing to work with, and that's really good to hear. But how did you get your game in front of them in the first place?
So this is another great story. I told you I brought the game to some conventions in 2016, 2017. That's where I met with one publisher who just happened to sit down at a Protospiel event, which is basically an event at a convention where you just play prototypes, unpublished games.
Oh, cool.
And so they have those. Most game conventions have a Protospiel event where you can bring a game that's not published. People know they're coming to play that type of game, and you'll get feedback. So anyway, I was playing there. Well, then I found out that there was a board game design club that met in Toledo that I did not know about. And so I found out about it, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. I live in Toledo. There's a board game design club that meets in Toledo. And so I went there, and I played this game with John Gilmore, the designer of Dead of Winter and Dinosaur Island.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, he was there. Other published designers were there, multiple designers. And we started playing the game, and this, I don't think he'll mind me saying this, he was just so kind to me. He started texting while we were playing the game. He started texting publishers he knew and said, hey, I got a game I think you should look at. I think this is really good. And so that was kind of my in. When I got to Origins later that year, I had 3 meetings set up that he helped me set up. And then
that's awesome.
my friend,
That's great.
yeah, and then I don't know if you know Peter C. Hayward, the who leads Jelly Bean Games. He's a publisher, but he also is a designer as well. He's designed Village Pillage, French Toast, some family games like that. That Time You Killed Me is his latest design from Pandasaurus game. But anyway, he's a designer as well. He's a friend of mine. He helped me get the meeting with Zev at Wizkids. And so I actually left Origins in 2018 with 3 different publishers that wanted to sign my game. So that was just amazing.
Wow. So what's this guy's cell phone number?
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's always great to see the community kind of lifting up, right? Like, you know, I don't have a sense of what it is to, you know, publish a game, or if it's a cutthroat industry. I have a feeling that Milton Bradley's out there with his monocle being like, okay, what games can we oppress today?
Are you
I'm just
talking
kidding,
about
but-
the little guy in Monopoly with the monocle? The little round
Of course,
dude?
yes. You know?
Is that Milton Bradley?
I thought
I
that
don't
was
know,
Mr.
but it makes sense.
Moneybags or something.
Mr. Moneybags.
Yeah, Mr. Moneybags, a.k.a. Milton Bradley. You heard it here first, people.
Okay.
It's not a conspiracy.
If we're not beating up on Monopoly, we're beating up on Phase 10. And that's
Oh, please, no.
my wife is playing that Phase 10 constantly on her phone now. She's got it on her phone. I just wanted to share that, you guys,
Yeah.
because I know it
So-
would nauseate you.
I've played a lot of
So
games of
did-
Monopoly in Phase 10.
Ugh, I feel sorry for you. I feel sorry for you.
games
So, you know, a lot of people nowadays are going the self-publishing route, or deciding to go on Kickstarter or something like that. Did that ever cross your mind to, like, maybe publish a game that way?
Yeah. So I did a lot of research when I felt like I had a game and getting ready to publish, and I started reading, and basically there's 3 options, but those are the main 2 options, is to either self-publish through Kickstarter or to get it signed with the publisher. And by this time, again, I had designers that I could meet with in Toledo to talk to, industry professionals to give me their advice. Also, I did a lot of research and read a lot of blogs and things like that. I felt like, for me, what everybody told me is, if you want to self-publish, then you are not a board game designer. You are a board game publisher, a board game artist, a board game manufacturer. You put on so many other hats.
Yeah.
You're a business
Right.
person, and that wasn't the route I wanted to go. I don't see myself as that type of person who can run a business successfully and run a Kickstarter successfully. But I do see myself as someone who can successfully design board games. So, so I did think about it, but in the end, I felt like that was just not the route I wanted to go.
I think that's a really mature way of going about it, to be honest with you, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh man, you know, I put so much blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, and I want to see it published. And, you know, maybe they didn't have the same connections that you were able to make through your club, that type of thing, and so they didn't have the ins in the industry that they needed or whatever, you know. And quite frankly, maybe their game just wasn't as compelling, and so there's, you know, that aspect to it too. And so they decided to go the Kickstarter route, and the Kickstarter route, look, it's a lot of work if you don't have an infrastructure behind you, you know, like having to try to coordinate with, you know, the manufacturers, like, because half the time you're getting like components made in China,
Yep.
printed in printed in China maybe, or printed elsewhere, you know, and then trying to coordinate that and then get it assembled and then shipped to the right places. I mean, and that's just the delivery of it, right? Let alone like a lot of the other logistics, such as like marketing and, you know, other aspects of being that full kit and caboodle game manufacturer / publisher / designer /
Right.
you know.
If you have a lot of money and you're willing to lose a lot of money, then Kickstarter is probably the best way to get to consider yourself a published game designer, to get to see that finished product, to have, and that's emotional. Let me tell you, it's emotional when you get your finished product, whether it's the way I got mine through a publisher or even someone who's kickstarted. And if you have the money to spend and you don't want to take the time to shop it around to publishers, and that's become even harder through the last couple of years with the pandemic. Basically, there were no board game conventions, and in the past, prior to the pandemic, board game conventions was the easiest way to set up meetings with publishers to pitch your games. And so, if you don't want to go through all that hassle and you have a lot of money, you're willing to run a Kickstarter, then it is appealing. I see the appeal of it, but it's just not.
So you said something interesting there that I want to kind of noodle out a little bit. You said if you have a lot of money and you're willing to lose a lot of money. What did you mean by the lose a lot of money part?
Yeah, so I have a co-designer that I'm working with on some other games, and he has ran some Kickstarters for some card games and some small games. He runs a publishing company called Glass Shoe Games, and they actually published another one of my games that did go through Kickstarter through them, called Treasure Cats, and that game will be releasing to backers sometime in March.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's a lightweight family game, bluffing, similar to like Love Letter or actually it's kind of similar to Coup, I guess, a little bit. It's a bluffing type game. But anyway, he likes to say if you can afford to, drive a brand new car into the lake and not worry about it, then you're set to go kickstart a game. But
wow.
Yeah, he said it's everything ends up costing more than you think it's going to, and especially with the situation of the global supply chain right now is just insane.
Yep.
I have several friends who are designers who had games on Kickstarter that fulfilled, and then they all of a sudden found out that it's going to be $20,000 more to get to ship their games here than what they were originally quoted and all that. And it's just everything is in flux right now, and it's tough.
Well, and not every game is a CMON zombie side like multi-million-dollar like Kickstarter, right? Where I don't know. I mean, maybe they're like taking a bath. I'm sure they're taking a bath on some of the global supply chain issues too. But you look at those where they're like, our goal is to raise $400,000, and like $4 million later, their Kickstarter campaign has ended.
Right.
But I could see the real issue where you say, okay, our pledge level is $150 for this game, plus all the stretch goals or whatever it is, and a year later when you're supposed to be fulfilling, like that game's costing you $200 to get out the door.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So that oh man, like what a nightmare, right? Because then you're looking at Kickstarter when it ends, and you're like, oh, wow, we like killed our goal, we crushed it, it's gonna be amazing, and the nightmare on the back end that could be.
And if you're a first time Kickstarter creator, then you probably don't have a large following. I mean, maybe you have, but you've had to spend money to get that following. Marketing costs a lot of money, and it's not a cost that you may intrinsically think about when you're calculating. Okay, I figured out I'm going to have to pay. This is how much the art is going to cost. This is how much it's going to cost for manufacturing. But you have to factor in a marketing budget, or nobody's going to find out about your game, and that's a lot of money. And so if you forget about that, and then you have to pay that later, it's just money you're losing. I mean, you're getting it back. But
I think we should congratulate you, Nathan. I mean, I'm here on the Wizkids site. Your game, Free Radicals, is on the main page. It's right here next to Critical Role, no slouch in the gaming world, Dice Masters, Spider-Man, DC Hero Click, Star Trek, Attack Wing, D&D, and your game is just right there. And that, I mean, congratulations. I mean, I'm giving you a verbal round of applause.
Thank you.
It'd be weird if I clapped. But that's like a legit accomplishment for, a lot of these other games, if, Attack Wing is based on another system. ported into Star Trek. You've got HeroClix, which has been on for 1,000,000 years, and a lot of these games are propped up by IP, and your game is here standing as a wholly new, thing. And so, bravo.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I would see your game as coming out of something more like FF, Fantasy Flight Games type of game, or maybe even a Gale Force 9. I don't think I would have pegged Wizkids to pick up this this kind of IP that you have.
Yeah, they're I like the direction their company's going. The last couple of years, they've really tried to get unique games, and really refocus their branding on really unique, clever board games. I don't want to speak for the company. I don't work for Wizkids. They publish my game, but I do like they had a game come out in 2019 called Sidereal Confluence that is amazing. It's similar to my game in the sense that when you hear the pitch for it, you're like, what is that? And then it's a 7-player game, space game that is all about trying to trade with other players. So each faction in that game produces one or two specific resources, but you can't use those resources to make anything that your faction wants to make. So the only way you can make anything in that game is by trading with other players, and it's just a really clever game, really clever design. They have another game called Fantasy Realms that came out 2019 that's great. Got nominated for a Spiel des Jahres, one of the top awards in board games. They have a game called Flotilla that's just really weird. You play on one side of the board, but then you can flip the board and play on the other side, while some players are still playing on one side, and it's crazy.
Oh, man.
So I really like the direction their company's going.
Yeah, that's very very cool. Because my association of Wizkids in the past has just been a lot of D&D stuff.
Yeah, of course
got
they're
at
still
least a-
really into D&D and HeroClix and all that. Yep.
Yeah, and HeroClix. I was gonna say that too. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at least a dozen Wizkids Star Trek models in my peripheral vision, let alone what's on my shelf. So, but now I get to add this to my collection. I'm excited for Free Radicals. I'm gonna get my pre-order going.
So it's in pre-order right now. When does it officially hit the shelves as being available?
I don't know the exact date. Sometime at the end of this month.
Okay.
I got my pre-order copied, and then actually, yesterday I got my playtesting copies. So part of my contract was to get some free copies for some of my lead playtesters to reward them. So those all came in the mail.
Oh, very cool.
Those all came in the mail yesterday. So I've started giving out. I gave out a couple of those today, and I'll finish getting those out to my lead playtesters because they did a lot of work. This game was just. I think I played the game probably 500 times in playtesting to get it to the.
So that's a good question. So if you were going to do a rough estimate right now on the spot, how many hours of play time or of playtest time were put behind this?
I would say total probably 2,000 hours.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
That's
Very
what it
cool.
takes to get it right.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, 10 asymmetric factions balance was definitely a big.
Oh yeah, sure.
Focus.
that gives me nightmares, kind of.
Yeah.
If you start seeing everybody reach for the same faction every time you play the game, it's like
Right.
Yeah.
I got a million questions for you. I know we're wrapping up, but this is a 2 to 5 player game, and you have 10 factions. Is there a possibility or a rules thing where you get the 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th player using as factions, or is that just not going to work with the game mechanic?
I thought about it, but it's not going to work. So basically, it won't work right now. But it also didn't work for me to try to design it to work. How it works is there are 5 different colors, and so each faction is a double-sided player board. So, for example, the executives and farmers are both red factions. So if I choose to be the farmers, no other player could choose to be the executives.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Cool.
so that's how that works. I saw somebody in the forums, or maybe it was on a comment on a video, but I think some people, when they get the game, will try to experiment with ways to play it with 6 players. But
6 players.
I don't know. I did not design it that way.
Yeah, we will not encourage using your own scanning and printing equipment at home.
Hey, I don't
to make
care.
that a
Whatever.
reality.
If they want to try it.
Well, you had the great Tom Vassell review your game. I mean, just the fact that he sat down and played your game enough times for a review, that's a big accomplishment there. And so, Nate, you're the real deal. And we really were really grateful that you had responded to us reaching out and taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, I enjoy myself.
Yeah, cool.
I like talking about my games, so that's always fun. And I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, so Nathan, one final question. Do you have Tabletop Simulator?
I do, yes.
Yes.
Oh,
All right.
we need to get this going.
We need to get this going. We need you to get your review of the game that we're working on.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you guys have my email address. Reach out to me. I'd love to play on Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah, we'll do it. It'll be fun.
Yeah,
And
that'd
you
be
can
great.
you can be kind.
Oh, of course.
No, be honest. They need all the help they can
No,
get.
I said kind.
I'm no expert, but I definitely would love to help you and give whatever feedback I can.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, you've been around the block a little bit, so it'd just be fun to hang out and play some
For
games
sure.
and roll some
For sure.
stuff.
And let's be honest, out of the 4 of us, you kind of are the expert. So
I guess. Yeah.
awesome. Well, actually, I know Jason had a final comment or a question, but I've got one that I want to ask you. Map us out. What's your future look like? Like, you said you've got one kind of coming out on order fulfillment in March. You said you've got another one that's in the works and publishing. You're designing another one. Like what does the map for the next 1, 3, 5 years look like for Nathan Woll?
So my 5-year goal, which will probably end up being 10 years, but we'll see. But I do want to do this full time. That is my goal. So right now I have Free Radicals, and then I have Treasure Cats, which, like I said, finishes fulfillment in March. So I have 2 published games. I have 4 other games right now that I am pitching to publishers actively that are all finished, all done, ready to go. And then I have about 6 or 7 other games that I'm working on at any given time.
Man.
So, and
Your creativity level is like 100 right now, my man.
it's fun. I will say it's been a long time to get to this point. One advice I would give to anyone is the best way to get good at designing board games is design a lot of board games. Free Radicals was maybe
Time on the ball.
Free Radicals was maybe the 15th, 16th board game that I designed, and the other ones were bad, most of them. But I had to design bad games to get to the point where I could just start designing good games. So,
Did you ever try to pitch your bad ones, or were you just like, oh, I know these are terrible. I'm not. These aren't going to see. These are the ugly babies that won't see the day of light, or light of day. Sorry.
No, I didn't. But that was more because I didn't know yet how to do that. It was really a great timing that I had Free Radicals ready to go when I met with some of the experts in the industry, with John Gilmore, with Peter C. Hayward, with those people that were able to help me network and reach out to other people. But my other games. Now, one thing about having a bunch of old designs is I keep them all in a folder in my computer and I can go back to them. That's what I was mentioned earlier in this podcast. Actually, one of the game I really put a lot of time into this week was a game that I designed, a couple years ago that I kind of just didn't feel like was going anywhere, and set it aside. And then I went back to it this week and had a kind of flash of inspiration, like, oh, I can do this, and so.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, because if you've got an idea for something, there's something there, right? Like there's a nugget in there somewhere that might be able to be teased out in some way or another. So
yeah, and my other game,
Yeah,
I
cool.
don't want to talk too much. My other game, Treasure Cats, like I said, that finishes fulfillment. That was a game that was a reworking of a game I designed in 2007. So that was a long time between work, but yeah. So it takes time, but I see myself as trying to do this full time down the road.
Yeah, man. The best of luck to you, because it's not an easy business to get into. I don't think it's an industry that's gonna make you a gazillionaire. But if it's your passion and it can sustain your lifestyle, then like more power to you. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. Great job. We can't wait to play this game.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show,
Yeah,
man.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the talk.
Thank you to everybody who listened to our show tonight. Again, thank you to Nathan Woll who came. His game is Free Radicals. Check it out on Wizkids.com. You can also find it in several other retailers. I saw it on miniaturemarket.com. Check it out there. We would love for you to pick it up and try it out. It seems like it's going to be an amazing game, and we can't try to do it. So if you like this episode, go ahead, give us a share, give us a like, give us a comment. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the places. We're also on our Discord channel, so if you would like an invite to that, visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/tabletopandbeyond, and there is a link to our Discord channel there. And you can also find us, most importantly, at tabletopandbeyond.com, where we got a lot of different content for all of the people who are interested in our board game reviews, interesting TV show episode write-ups, etc. Visit us there, and we'll see you at the gaming table. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
See ya.
Good night.